Hi everyone, Phil Preston here, and welcome to the Business Purpose Trends podcast for another week. The year is winding down, and I've got to say the big step forward for me this week was biting the bullet and sorting out all the cables and chargers that I had around my desk. If you're watching this on YouTube, then you can't actually see those cables anyway, but they were going everywhere, and I just felt I achieved something on the weekend by tidying them all up. How long it will stay that way, I don't know, but there's something to aspire to for all of us, I guess. So this week, I'm going to be talking about probably something with a slightly different edge to it, and that is around developing resilience and growth for leaders and teams in organizations. And this parallels a blog or an article I wrote recently, and there's also a video on it on my website as well. That's philpreston.com.au. And what I want to do is draw the parallels between resilience and growth and how purpose builds and fuels them. So it's very timely as we head into 2024, I think, to be talking about something different or something new. I'm finding that performance is one of the key challenges that teams are facing right now. And I'll just flesh that out a little in this discussion. But what traditionally we've encountered is leaders often need either resilience skills or growth skills, but many organizations say, well, can't we build both of these at the same time? Because we've got such a fast moving environment that we're dealing with, we can't sort of take a linear approach. How do we, I guess, get to the place we need to get to quickly, and how do we do it effectively? Now, I just want to backtrack a little bit and give you a little bit of backstory in that my professional career began back in 1988, and I'm showing my age there. When I moved to Sydney after growing up in Hobart, Tasmania. If you're tuning in from outside of Australia, then Tasmania is the little state at the bottom, the island state. And it was, I guess, unfairly tagged by people as being a bit of a backward place. And therefore, we had to develop a little bit of resilience ourselves in growing up in a place like Hobart, because it had that tag about it in the day. But today, it's a little bit more trendy. But I haven't lived there for a while because I moved out in 1988 when I went to Sydney to take up my job with a life insurance company. But I think about the pace of change back then and what it's like now, and it's like chalk and cheese, because I think what changed in a year back then almost happens on a daily basis now. And therefore, every organization on the planet and every team in every organization is pretty much under immense pressure to interpret what's going on and be able to respond in what are narrowing timeframes. We don't have all year to form a plan. We've got to often respond very quickly. And that, for many people, is becoming exhausting on all levels. I don't know if you've ever looked at the quotes of Jack Welch, the former CEO of General Electric. And at one stage he said, if the rate of change on the outside of your organization exceeds the rate of change within, then for you as an organization, the end is near. And I think this takes its human toll as well, because a survey by HP, Hewlett-Packard, found that only 27% of knowledge workers say they have a healthy relationship with work, and 83% would be willing to earn less in order to be happier. I messaged a client of mine recently, about four or 5 weeks ago. He came back and he said, I'm doing okay, but I'm incredibly busy and it's now affecting my mental health. So that was a little bit of a marker and a reminder. This is taking its toll. So at the personal, the team, and the organizational level, these pressures are being felt. Now, I want to put forward the idea that purpose really is the foundation for establishing resilience and growth at the same time. And I had my own run-in with purpose after 19 years of working in corporate roles. My life looked good on paper, but something wasn't quite right. And for many reasons, and I won't go into the whole backstory here because I'm sure you don't have hours in the day to listen to it, but I had a bit of a breakdown of sorts, which led to an abrupt resignation. It's a first world problem because, on paper, life was good. However, it was very real, and it happened because I'd set my goals in life around getting to that point. And once I was kind of sort of there, I hit an existential wall. Try and say that quickly, existential wall. And in hindsight, I wish back then I had more awareness around purpose in my life and better tools to navigate through that storm. So as someone who was an employee, I didn't let my boss know about it. I didn't let my work know about it. It came, I guess, to a head and I just left. Now, as I point out in my blog and in the video, there was an obvious cry for help. About 12 months earlier, I'd started playing in a progressive folk blues band. If that's not a cry for help, I don't know what is. But what I've learned since then is that purpose is core to resilience and growth, because on the resilience side, it does help us deal with adversity, stress, and trauma. It helps us persevere when we're faced with challenges and setbacks, and it helps us bounce back, or it motivates us to bounce back as well. But it's not just about resilience. When you have, I guess, a clear goal in life, on the growth side, I find people with a strong sense of purpose are incredibly focused because they have that clear direction. They don't get distracted by the shiny new objects that many of us can be distracted by, because they do know their direction. Doesn't mean they don't get distracted from time to time, but they'll come back to what's important to them. They'll tend to be more effective, or try out new things, seek out new experiences, and they'll engage in self-improvement, and coming from a base of self-reflection. So we have these two things going here. Purpose builds both resilience and growth. But the challenge is, purpose is a really fuzzy concept. So I spend a bit of my time helping to break it down for working professionals, and I break it down into three key components. The first one is the personal purpose piece. And you can think of personal purpose as being one or more high-level, meaningful goals that give you direction and motivation in life. And maybe if there's anyone take away from this podcast, I think that's it, is just recognizing that formalizing some thought around this is worthwhile. So personal purpose is one or more high-level, meaningful goals that give you direction and motivation in life. That's my definition, but I think it works pretty well. So for some people, it's about helping people on the planet. It's about helping the environment. For others, it might be about providing for their family. For someone else, it's about just being mentally in a good place. For someone else, it's about, I guess, realizing their potential in their work or in life in general. So there's no right or wrong answer. It depends on who you are, what's going on around you in your life, and what's important to you, and your sense of purpose will change as your life changes as well. But the main thing is to have awareness of the drivers of meaning and purpose and how that links to happiness. And again, I said a fair bit of my work is in that field, because we often don't recognize the role that work plays in fulfilling that personal sense of purpose. And that's a big gap that can be easily filled. I'm also hearing that employers might have an initial reaction that, well, we don't want to help our people understand purpose in their life because they might realize they'd rather be doing something else and they'll leave. Well, that's always a risk. People can leave any time. Most people do have financial obligations or aspirations that keep them plugged into their work in some form. They can't just leave at any time. And I'm finding that line managers are increasingly saying it's actually riskier not to have these conversations than it is to have them. So that's just a preview of the personal purpose piece. That's component number one. Let's move on now to component number two, which has been the topic of this podcast quite a bit, which is around business or organizational purpose. And it's about the positive impacts that your organization produces if it's doing its job well. And if you can get good clarity of purpose and actually implement it, then you're going to benefit in areas like workforce attraction, engagement levels, and retention rates. Now, in the past, and when I say past, I'm going back really only 3 to 5 years, corporate purpose statements have not been taken all that seriously. But what we're finding is that leading companies and researchers find that it drives performance if it's done well, and it drives performance, competitive advantage, and profitability. In fact, when I left my corporate career and set up my consulting business, I came across the works of Harvard Business School's Professor Michael Porter and Mark Kramer, who pioneered a lot of work in this space of connecting profit with purpose. And after joining them in Boston with a group of other practitioners from around the world, I ended up cataloging a lot of case studies and also authoring a book that collates case studies and examples of where profit and purpose connect. And that is the title of the book. If you're watching YouTube, you might be able to see it in the background, Connecting Profit with Purpose. So while tactical moves may add to the bottom line of a business in the short term, clarity of purpose brings focus to the genuine problems that you're solving. And therefore that drives not only resilience in the medium to long term, because if what you do is needed, you'll be more resilient as a business by its nature. but it's also driving medium to longer term value for shareholders as well. But it all comes down to being able to implement it. Now, if you want to go to my website, I give a concrete example of what this looks like, one that I might have mentioned on this podcast in previous ones, but I go over it again. It's about AIA Australia, a life insurer, and on the video version, you'll get a bit more of a breakdown there. But I guess you have to ask yourself whether your purpose statement is inspiring your people. More importantly, is it being implemented so that they're being energized by the positive and tangible impacts that you're creating for customers and communities? So part one was personal purpose. Part two was about business purpose. And for working professionals, part three is about where those two intersect. And it's making purpose real to everyday work. The number of companies that have nice, glossy purpose statements, but they don't actually put it into practice, and therefore their people don't even think about it when they come to work every day is huge. People who do this well are the exception rather than the rule. And it can cost a lot of money in terms of not just going through that process, but you're losing productivity, you're losing energy, you're losing engagement as a result. And with the advent of dispersed and virtually connected teams, this is arguably more important now than ever. According to Accenture, only 30% of employees see a link to their company's broader purpose, which represents not only a problem, but also an opportunity, because in many cases, you can make that connection by way of narratives. So narratives, helping people connect their, I guess, personal career and life purpose with what they do in their role in their team every day, and then connecting that through to what your organization does and the great things it achieves in the world. And this is a big return on investment opportunity, because the investment is small and the opportunity is huge in terms of engagement, innovation, and other areas of uplift. The Josh Bersin Company has found that when purpose is embedded in work cultures, employee engagement and retention rates are 6 times higher than when it's not. So helping your people craft narratives, linking their personal to their work every day, and then your organizational purpose is valuable. So that's a bit of a summary. It's those 3 components coming together. None of us really knows what lies around the corner in our lives, but by focusing on these components, we can build strong foundations for resilience and growth that people in organizations desperately need now and into the future. And just to finish up on, life is a precious thing. We spend a lot of it at work, so why not make it count for something really significant? There's a bit of an overview. I think it's important to understand these connections, and I'm willing to take any questions you have offline. You can contact me via the details in the show notes. I'm also going to put the links into the article and to the video version of it if you want to spend more time doing that. It's not my full keynote, but it gives you an idea of what I do when I present in front of audiences. You might find that just useful from a presentational experience alone. And there's also a download which comes off that, which is called 11 Ways to Unlock the True Potential of Your Leaders and Teams with Purpose. So there you go. Everyone wins a prize. There's a set of steak knives to go with it. Thanks for tuning in this week to the Business Purpose Trends podcast. I'm Phil Preston, and may the purpose trend be with you.